He raised his hand at 11:47 on a Saturday morning, and he couldn't tell you why. He had attended 43 storage auctions in the past 2 years. He had never once bid on anything. But that morning, with Unit 47 open in front of him, the usual crowd, the usual smell of dust and stale air, something made him lift his arm. The auctioneer pointed, someone else countered, Martin bid again. He walked away $400 lighter and in possession of something he did not yet understand. Martin Keller was 54 years old and recently retired from 26 years of teaching high school history. His wife, Renata, had a list of things she hoped he would do with the time: fix the porch steps, organize the basement, take a Portuguese class at the community center. Martin had done none of these things. What he had done, every Saturday since September of the previous year, was drive 40 minutes to the regional auction house and watch strangers bid on the abandoned belongings of other strangers. He told Renata it was interesting. It was, in the way that airports are interesting, a compressed view of lives in transition. He had seen a unit full of taxidermied animals, one containing nothing but a single armchair, positioned in the center of the space as though someone had arranged it deliberately before leaving. Units packed wall to wall and units that held almost nothing. Each one told a partial story. He had never wanted to own any of it. Unit 47 was unremarkable from the outside. A standard roll-up door, 10 by 20 feet, a lock that had been cut by the facility manager. When the door went up, Martin saw the usual arrangement: furniture wrapped in moving blankets, stacked boxes, a few loose items near the front. A floor lamp with no shade, a set of wooden chairs. Nothing to distinguish it from the other 42 he had watched sell. He raised his hand anyway. He thought, briefly, that it might have been a reflex, the body doing something the mind had not yet decided. He paid in cash, collected the padlock key from the front office, and drove home with the unit still locked behind him, unsure of what he had actually done. He went back the following morning with his son's pickup truck and began working through the unit methodically. The furniture was in reasonable condition: a dresser, a small dining table, the wooden chairs, a bookshelf with a cracked spine on the top shelf. The boxes were labeled in a careful, unhurried hand: kitchen, books, winter, documents. Martin was systematic. He stacked what was usable against the far wall and set aside what wasn't. He had no plan for any of it. He told himself he would donate what he could and deal with the rest later. By mid-morning he had cleared about half the space. That was when he found the box at the back, beneath a folded comforter. It was a metal filing box, the kind with a handle and a combination lock, except the lock had been left open, the shackle raised, unlatched. Inside were 5 hanging folders. The first held receipts from the storage facility, rent payments going back 12 years, all paid by money order under the name C. Aldrin. Martin set the folder on the tailgate and opened the second. What he found there stopped him: a driver's license, laminated in plastic and sealed in a small envelope. The license was from the state of New Mexico, issued in 2015. The name on it was Sandra Reyes. But the face in the photo, a woman in her late 30s, dark hair, a cautious expression, was not a stranger. Martin didn't know why he recognized her. He had never met her. But something about the image made him set everything down and take out his phone. He typed the name Claire Aldrin into a search engine. The results came back in under a second. The first was a news article from October 2013. The headline read, "Columbus woman missing after car found at I-70 rest stop." The photograph accompanying it was 12 years older, but it was the same face. Martin sat on the tailgate for a long time. Claire Aldrin had been 38 when she disappeared. She had worked as a medical transcriptionist. She had a daughter, Petra, who was 17 at the time and living with Claire's sister in the weeks before the disappearance. Claire's estranged husband had been questioned twice. No charges were filed. The case had gone cold within 18 months. Martin read everything he could find from his phone, sitting outside the storage unit in the October light. There wasn't much. A follow-up article from 2015 noting that the case remained open. A community forum post from someone claiming to be a former coworker, asking if anyone had heard anything. And then nothing, the trail of public interest that follows a missing person, thinning and then disappearing. He opened the third folder. Inside was a handwritten letter. 2 pages, front and back, in the same careful script as the box labels. It was addressed to Petra. Martin read the first line and then stopped. He folded it back along its crease, set it face down on the metal lid, and did not read further. The fourth folder held $8,000 in cash, bundled in rubber bands, in amounts of $500 each. The fifth folder was empty except for a small index card. On it, written in pencil, "If you are reading this, you already know more than I wanted anyone to know. Please don't look for me. I am alive." Martin sat with that card for a long time. He called Renata that afternoon and told her he wasn't coming home for dinner. He drove to a diner near the highway, ordered coffee he didn't drink, and thought. He thought about the police, and talked himself out of that twice. He thought about doing nothing, and talked himself out of that once. He sat for 2 hours, then drove back to the unit, locked it, and went home. He did not sleep well. Over the following days he found himself returning to the search. He located a faculty listing for a community college in Columbus, ceramics, adjunct instructor, Diane Aldrin. 40 miles from where he lived. He wrote 3 drafts of an email before sending none of them. On the 6th day, he drove to Columbus. He told Renata he was visiting a former colleague. He found Diane Aldrin's office during her posted hours and knocked on the door. She was a thin woman in her 60s, gray-haired, reading glasses pushed up on her head. She looked at Martin the way people look at strangers who knock on closed doors, carefully, without alarm. He told her he had bought a storage unit at an auction. He said the renter's name. He watched her expression change. She asked him to sit down. Diane was quiet for almost a full minute after he explained what he had found. Her hands were flat on the desk, palms down, as though steadying herself. Then she asked him one question. Was the letter sealed? Martin said no, folded, but not sealed. He said he had read the first line before stopping. Diane nodded slowly. She said, "Petra." Martin said he didn't understand. Diane told him something that took several minutes. In the 12 years since Claire's disappearance, she had received, on 3 separate occasions, a money order in the mail with no return address. The first arrived 14 months after Claire vanished, $1,100. The second came 4 years later. The third was 2 years ago, $600, nothing else. She had known, or believed, that Claire was alive. She had never told the police about the money orders, because doing so would have meant explaining what she believed, and what she believed was that Claire had left deliberately, to escape a man who had, in Diane's words, been slowly erasing her for 9 years. She had spent a long time being angry about it. She had raised Petra through high school and into college. She had spent years answering questions she couldn't honestly answer. And then, gradually, she had made a kind of peace with it. Because the alternative was worse. Martin asked about the storage unit. Diane said she hadn't known it existed. He asked how 12 years of payments could have gone unnoticed. Diane smiled, thinly. Claire was very organized, she said. He told her about the letter, that he hadn't read it, that he thought it was meant for Petra. Diane looked at him for a long moment. How much did you pay for the unit? She asked. $400, Martin said. She didn't say anything to that. He drove home that evening in the near dark, the metal filing box on the passenger seat. He had not left it with her. She hadn't asked him to. What she had asked was for a few days to think. She said she would call him. He drove without the radio. He thought about the index card. He thought about Petra, who was now 29 years old and had spent 12 years not knowing whether her mother was alive. He stopped for gas off the highway. While the pump ran, he stood in the cold and looked at the sky. He thought, I am a retired history teacher from a small town in Ohio who went to a storage auction because I had nothing better to do on a Saturday. And here I am. Diane called him 3 days later. She told him she had spoken with Petra. She hadn't told her everything, not yet, but enough. That someone had come forward with information, and that there was a letter. Petra had asked if it was from Claire. Diane said yes. Petra had not spoken for a long time after that. Then she said she wanted to read it. Martin drove back to Columbus the following weekend with the filing box. He sat in Diane's kitchen while Diane went to the back of the apartment. He heard, at some point, a sound he couldn't clearly identify. He waited. He drank a glass of water and looked out the kitchen window at a backyard with a wooden fence and a single bare tree. When Diane came back, she was alone. She told him Petra had read the letter. She did not tell him what it said, and Martin didn't ask. Diane explained what she believed about the storage unit. The rent had been paid for 12 years, $60 a month, by money order, and 3 months ago, Claire had simply stopped. Not because something had happened to her. Because enough time had passed, Diane thought. Because Petra was an adult now. Because Claire had decided that the things inside deserved to be released. She had not anticipated an auction, Diane said. She had probably expected the unit to sit unclaimed longer than it did. Or perhaps, Diane said carefully, perhaps she had expected exactly this. The unlocked filing box. The index card left on top. Martin thought about that. He asked whether Diane knew where Claire was now. Diane said she was working on it. She said she thought there might be a way to reach her. She said she would let him know. She didn't, in the end, tell him anything more. What Martin knew, after everything, was this. Claire Aldrin had walked away from her life in October 2013, left her car at a rest stop on the interstate, and become someone else. She had kept paying rent on a unit full of her former life, documents, cash, a letter, the paper components of a disappeared woman, for 12 years, until she decided it was safe enough to finally let them go. Whether she had anticipated the auction was a question he kept returning to. He thought of the index card, the careful handwriting, the unlocked filing box. It was too organized to be careless. He didn't know what to make of that. He suspected, eventually, that he wasn't meant to. He donated the furniture to a church thrift store. The cash he turned over to Diane, who said she would pass it along to Petra. The rest he left for Diane to decide. He still goes to auctions most Saturdays. Renata says he's worse now than before, more likely to stand close to the open doors, to look carefully at what's inside. He has not bid on anything since that October morning. He thinks sometimes about Petra reading that letter in a back room in Columbus, after 29 years of not knowing. He thinks about what a letter like that could possibly say, and what it could never say, and whether those two things are the same. He doesn't know how the story ended. He doesn't think he's supposed to. The storage unit is empty now. Someone else rents it. # story notes. Fictional. Inspired by documented storage auction discoveries and domestic disappearance cases. All characters, names, locations, and details are invented, not based on any specific real case.